Welcome to Rapid Harmony. I'm Kyle Emanuel Brown. This is a space for high-achieving souls who want more than outcomes. You want resonance, you want truth, you want a life that moves with purpose instead of pressure. Here, we explore success with the soul and direction with depth. We slow things down just enough to hear your own wisdom again. We breathe, we question, we remember the part of you that never needed permission to leave. Every conversation is an invitation to trust yourself more than the noise around you, and live from that clarity that rises when you stop forcing and start listening. Take a breath, settle in, let's begin. All right, so Makhosi, what if the version of you who created your success is now the very thing preventing you from experiencing it? What do you think about that?
I know that this is a threshold that pretty much every founder faces at some point, and how they navigate that makes all the difference in what becomes possible in the next chapter.
And I know you've worked with founders who've built businesses, they've hit the numbers, they've achieved what they once believed would finally make them feel free, yet somewhere along the way, the success stopped landing. Now, do you think that's because they're burnout or because their consciousness has outgrown the identity that they built in the company?
I think that burnout is a symptom of them reaching the ceiling that their consciousness has allowed. They're reaching the limits of their capacity, really, and that then manifests as burnout. Because when we are constantly seeking and chasing and hustling for the next milestone, and we're doing so from a place that isn't it's not from aliveness. It doesn't have any life force energy behind
Right.
it. It feels heavy. It feels like you have to push. I think we all know the difference between when we are actually in flow and what that feels like. We can all recall back to a time when we could work for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, and it feels like nothing, like time just flew. And the difference when you are not in flow is that it feels like you're pushing a boulder up a hill.
Mm.
And then we wonder why we're burnt out.
That's right. And Lord knows I've been there. And luckily, I had you to help guide me along those lines. So, for those of you here who don't yet know Makhosi, and luckily we'll get to, uh, Makhosi advises founders who've built successful companies, reached major milestones, and realized that winning no longer feels the way they expected. So, over 8 years of advising hundreds of founders, she's seen a reoccurring pattern that the identity the founder develops to build the company eventually becomes the reason that success stops feeling satisfying and the business stops evolving. So her work bridges a decade of business experience with full initiation into a Southern African spiritual tradition that has advised leaders through traditions or transitions of power for generations. Through her public work as the Royal Shaman and inside the House of Sovereign Legacy, she leads monthly house briefings, writes letters from the house, hosts the Architects of Sovereignty podcasts, and privately advises a small number of founders navigating ceilings that strategy alone can't solve. Her work's been featured on CNBC, Business Insider, Success Entrepreneur, NBC, ABC, CBS, and personally, I got to say, before I get into any of the founder consciousness concepts, I want to give people a little context about our relationship because you didn't enter my life as some distant expert that I found and said, hey, you want to come on my podcast? So for me, after my near-death experience, something really profound had happened inside of me. And the masculine energy that had powered most of my life seemed like it shut off for nearly 3 years. And I lost a lot of my ability to work out consistently, create any structure, access clarity, execute plans, build any momentum. And these very qualities that I relied on as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a father, as an athlete, they were gone. And at the same time, my feminine energy opened up like a floodgate, both the divine and a lot of the wounded stuff, my intuition, my spiritual connection, my sensitivity, my ability to perceive energy, that stuff accelerated at an almost unbelievable rate. Uh, but my lack of clarity and drive, I was struggling with grounding, with receiving, with seeing any kind of possibilities or anything. And you really actually became one of my primary guides during that period. And I, I think we spoke multiple times a day, most days for, a long time, and really happened to help me navigate my spiritual reawakening and help me become the weird kid that I was, but as an adult. So really excited about that. And I know at the same time, I was fortunate enough to get to help guide you a bit in the nutrition and fitness side. So it was this beautiful energy exchange. And, a lot of ways I see that, this relationship has been profound. So just wanted to start with some gratitude there, that your wisdom is so far beyond what others will see on social media, probably even get to taste in this interview, that this is the real deal, folks. This isn't your Instagram shaman in any way, shape, or form. We're talking Zulu brilliance, practical, pragmatic, grounded, and somebody who can really just, has that day to day opportunity to guide the best of the best. So I'm honored to not only have you as a guest, but to also have had that experience of being a client. So I want to start with the idea of what happens after you win. So you've worked with these founders and different people, and what do you see happens internally after someone's achieved this level of winning? I know you got to see it within my experience where I'm winning on the outside and everything looks amazing, but inside I was just breaking. And what do you see happens? What's been the pattern?
Yeah, I think your story and what happened to you with your near death experience was what I now come to start calling the reckoning moment, where there's a knowing for a long time, right? There's usually some years of knowing that there's a level of disconnection, there's a misalignment, that something isn't quite right. And it's really, really difficult to get off of the hamster wheel of success, because you keep thinking, and you're told, you're given a map that says, hey, all you have to do is just add another zero, hit the next level, you know, cut more body fat,
Yeah.
do the next challenge, right? Like there's always a new goalpost to hit. And founders especially, but leaders, high achievers tend to develop certain qualities that make them really good at that game, that make
Right.
them really good at being disciplined, at tracking numbers, at analyzing, at strategizing. And usually, not always, but unfortunately, um, you can also be really stubborn. And it requires
Right.
some catalytic event. Sometimes that's, a hospital visit, a health scare. It could be the passing of a loved one. It can be the birth of children. It could be the divorce that comes out of nowhere. But often there is a moment where it's almost like being hit across the head with a 2x4 that says, hey, this way of being is not working for us. This is unsustainable. Something ain't right here. And now we're going to take you on this other journey. And I'll be very honest. Most people they don't take that journey because there's not a blueprint for it. There's not a map that says, hey, here's how you navigate this, because A, it's unique to everyone. And B, it isn't productive to the way that we've structured society, the way that our system works.
That's right.
So, no one is going to tell you that there is another way of being, and very few are able to show you even how to integrate and come into that new way of being and what that looks like. And to be honest, it's terrifying because there's so much unknown. It's not like where you have goals and you have a vision and you go, oh, I'm just going to, reverse engineer. I want to become a published author. I want to speak on stages, et cetera. I just need to do these things, these activities, and I'll get there. Often you don't have more than like one or two next steps. And you have to learn how to trust your inner guidance system, your inner GPS, to be the one to guide you. And part of the challenge in that is your mind can only envision what it's seen before,
Hmm.
but who you're here to be has never been before. So no one can just tell you, hey, this is what you need to do to get there. It's a process of deconstructing who you become. It's an unbecoming process in order to integrate in this different way of being.
I can relate to so much of that. One, I think my situation, I think I was a pretty rare case in the sense of it wasn't a stubbornness. It was a really strong, ingrained thought process, belief system, BS that one was this thought that success of whatever that might be was sitting right at my fingertips. So it stayed right there.
Mm.
Like there was success, but there wasn't fulfillment. And two, knowing that there was something really big that I was meant to do here on this planet, it was this belief system that I was stuck in purgatory
Mm.
for like a decade. And I would constantly just feel like I'm in purgatory. This fitness empire stuff is going to break through to this one level and this one thing. And it was fully my identity. And then at the same point, I would sit there and go, like, I don't want to be this old version of myself anymore. How do I get out? I'm stuck here. It was like this waiting. And you wait for so long until the universe goes, well, this waiting game is kind of boring. I'm not liking this movie. We need to make this movie a little bit more exciting. So let's just nuke everything. And the second thing I think that's really unique about this journey and the work you do that most people I think get completely messed up when they even tap in just an idea of shamanism in general is they just think take some medicine, have an experience, that's shamanism. And yeah, the eye roll, I'm with you now that I know what it is. Cause yeah, we were 3+ years. You didn't give me any medicine, but I saw some pretty weird stuff that if I would have told most people, it probably would have been locked up. And luckily, the type of people I intentionally manifest to listen to this show have at least at minimum spiritual curiosity and open mindedness and know that I am this bridge between ancient wisdom, modern neuroscience, and peak performance. So they know I'm going to be bringing people on. So feel free to know you are in a safe space to allow those people to hear that it's not just all. You don't need to censor yourself here. Is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the term shamanism, and it's tricky as well because there is so much misunderstanding around certain terminology that most people, when they think of shamanism, it's purely like related to plant medicine, basically. And interestingly enough, I mean, I was in initiation for 5 years and I used no entheogenic substances in that 5 years. Now, I did experience other um, medicines, but they didn't have any, like, there was no journey aspect to them. So all of my quote unquote spiritual experiences were raw, basically, were happening without a stimulant helping to cause that to happen. And although I have worked with medicine, for the most part, at this point, I don't necessarily need it. And I think that while it can be really beneficial in certain instances, often, sometimes it can do more harm than good. And other times it creates a false sense um, of healing, of progress. It's kind of like, our culture loves a magic quick fix pill. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go and do this journey. And, it's incredible. I'm not going to
Yep.
say that it's not, you can experience profound healing. And also, most people don't get that the healing is in the integration component. That's usually like the more important part, but it is not the like sexy, easy thing that you can point to as I did this thing and it solved XYZ. And I see a lot of founders, especially who experience plant medicine, and their life ultimately doesn't change in the way that it could, not because the medicine didn't work, but because it isn't just about the medicine itself.
Right. They check it off a bucket list similar to get a Bugatti, go to the Amazon and try this, run this retreat here, or attend this retreat here. And for them, it's an experiential thing. I see that way too often, right? It's like, hey, I had this awesome experience and now I'm a lion and everybody else is a sheep. And now I'm God and everybody else is an NPC. And I struggle with that because I can see how that can happen, but I also think like, okay, keep walking the path. And embodiment is everything. And some of the most um, yogic like people I've met have no idea what yoga even is or what spirituality is. They won't even call themselves spiritual. They're just embodied, heart-centered, empathetic, selfless, uh, aligned individuals and have no connection to the terminology or the medicine, but they live as such.
Mm. Yeah, well said. I also think too that there's I'm just laughing because there is kind of a perception that someone who is a shaman is like a quote unquote holy person, and they think of holy in um a specific religious kind of way. But like my spirit, I just laugh because my spiritual mother and like my spiritual family, they are like spiritual gangsters. Okay. Everybody's like, people got cigarettes and cursing left and right. And it doesn't take away from their gifting, from their wisdom, from who they are. But it's kind of this full circle moment that it's like once you spiritual so hard, you come back around and, like drink I'm drinking Coke Zero, like
The ancestors like junk food. I will never forget that moment. So for context, if you're listening at home right now, Makhosi and I did a really incredible, powerful ceremony that we decided our space would be. I think it was like either Manhattan or Huntington Beach, one of those beaches right around there where I picked her up. We did this really big ceremony. Energetically, we were somehow protected because we had incense, we had cigarettes, we had all this junk food. We were starting fires on the beach. You're not allowed to. You have alcohol involved in the ceremonies on the beach. And we do this profound ceremony, and no lifeguard cops anything, stop any of it. I go into the water. My third eye awareness is as open as it's ever been. It was just this incredible experience. And you captured this photo where the light was hitting me, and everything from here was just all light, which is exactly how I was feeling in the moment. And it wasn't a, I'll say this like, it wasn't some showy experience of brothers and sisters love each other and light and love and hugs and focusing in on like how can I express these words in a tonality of my voice that is the spiritual version of a valley girl. It wasn't real the actual embodied me. This was deep, powerful, transformative, gut-wrenching work. And I thought the funniest thing ever was this, oh yeah, the ancestors like the junk food. And I think like now where I'm at on this path, I think like, well, I wonder if you're not on planet Earth and you're not having the human experience, what does treat your body like a temple look like? And it's probably like treat it really, really well and enjoy these things that you're not going to be getting in the spirit world.
I mean, part of the challenge that I think our current culture has is just over optimization and very little room for living,
Mm,
for presence, and a sense of harmony. Right?
right.
Uh, it is important that we recognize that there's a part of us that is here to enjoy. Like we're here to play, to enjoy
Yeah.
pleasure and delicious things, right? Um, that's part of being human, and it's okay, right?
Right.
I think that I will never forget your face when I was sitting here like cracking open a soda and like opening the chip bag and you have just like come from being so hardcore in nutrition and in fitness, and here I am like, yeah, and we're gonna eat this too.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna eat these? I don't think I've eaten one of these ever. I'm like, I'm not a religious person, but do I need to go repent when we're done? I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, just enjoy, just enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
okay
So
to enjoy a little bit.
so I want to bring this back to the founder concept that is how do you think a founder can tell whether or not they simply need rest or whether the identity that has built their companies maybe reached its expiration date?
I think that there's a few different tells, right? Because I never want to steer someone away who has just like pure burnout and that's all that it is from receiving the help that they need for burnout recovery, right? Although I will also just kind of add that a lot of the a lot of the prescription is kind of the same
Mhm.
because if you are burnt out, part of your recovery process will probably need to be some changes in how you're operating in your life, right?
Right.
Some better alignment in what activities you're doing, how much time you're spending on activities that are not really you, right? But you feel like you have to do them because I'm the only one who can do it like me, and everyone else is, uh, just half as good at
Yeah.
doing this paperwork, right? Um, so when you have burnout, right, there's this experience of a lack of life, a lack of passion, etc. And I think if you pay attention, burnout, you will also not necessarily have any of that life force in any other area as well, right?
Mhm.
Whereas in this experience that I'm talking about, you may notice that you have absolutely no energy for your client calls or to get on a podcast interview or to do the things that you need to do. But when it comes to going fishing or golfing or any of those other things, all of a sudden you are able to tap into
Mm.
some sort of enjoyment or energy, right?
Right.
So that's kind of like this fake burnout where you think that you're burnout, but part of it is that not even necessarily what you're doing, but how you are going about doing business, doing your work, how you've structured your day and your life,
Right.
that there's something inside of that that is the issue. Most of us, when we have some awareness that something's misaligned, we also make the mistake of thinking that the whole thing is wrong. What I'm doing is what's misaligned. And often it isn't even what you're doing that's misaligned, but it's just how you're doing it, right? So, for example, it could be something as simple as um, like I used to force myself to get up early in the morning and try to get everything done like the typical optimization knowledge out there says to do. So I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would try to get my workout in before 6 and all of those things. That was actually draining my energy because when I actually surrendered and listened to what is my body telling me? What is it that I need to express and use my energy for at different points in the day? How much
Mhm.
sleep do I need? What time do I go to sleep that's appropriate for me? If I just let go of all the judgment of, what makes me a good leader or
Right.
disciplined person, right? And I'm telling you, it's it's insane how much more energy I have when I like give myself permission to only take client calls after 11 in the morning and that I actually don't do any work. I don't do anything when I wake up. And sometimes I do pick up more in the evening because that's just I always
How
get like a
you're
benefit.
wired.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And then we have to sometimes ask ourselves, what is it within us that thinks we have to say yes to everything and give our own autonomy away? There was a time I was sitting here taking clients. I was like, I just need more clients. And I was taking clients. I would have 3 days a week, a 3:30 a.m. client because they were in Florida and they wanted to do their workout at 6:30 in the morning. And so it's 3:30 for me in San Diego and 3 days a week. And whew, what that did to my system was a wreck, a mess. But I didn't
Mm.
want to lose out on the opportunity. I liked coaching the guys. So, it's part of it's also like setting those healthy boundaries. Now, one thing that you do work wise, I think is really fascinating is I think, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're prepared for failure in some capacity, but they're not really prepared for what success is going to ask them to actually release. Now, what do you see happen to founders psychologically and spiritually in the months after an exit, a major revenue milestone, or like when they finally reached a goal?
Oh goodness. Well, um, I think it depends on how many of those that they've done
Ah,
because often the first milestone, sometimes it even takes a few before they start to see the pattern. But usually what I see with founders is an inability to receive, right? Like
mhm,
an inability to hit a milestone, exit a business, like experience something that they desired for a very long time and to actually be in it, to
mhm,
actually be with it, right? So they may go through the celebration, like the motions of the celebration, like, oh, I'm going to take the family on a trip or I'm going to go out to eat, etc. And then, you know, 24, 48, 72 hours later, they're going, all right, what's next on, check mark, what's next on the
right.
to-do list? What's next? What's the next goal? And it's the constant chasing that keeps them in this state of nothing is ever enough. And this moment after you've experienced success, there is an opportunity to change your relationship with how you are creating, with how you
Mm.
are building, with your relationship to success. Most founders get stuck in really like survival mode, right? Everything is about grind, force, push, go for it. And that serves you really well for a period of time. Like that is what the foundation of your success was. I'm not saying it's the only way to create success, but for most founders,
Yeah.
that is what creates the success. But that very, like that exact way of being that did create that level of success then starts to become a ceiling to what is your next chapter, right? What is not even necessarily the next revenue goal or the next company that you build and the number that comes along with it, but in how you experience building that. Like we think, I'm going to build this company so that I can have the freedom, or I'm going to do XYZ so I can get this thing, this treat at the end,
Yep.
right? Where the opportunity is actually that if I build it with that feeling, that experience that I desire while I'm building it, that it's almost like you get to have your cake and eat it too, right?
Right.
Can have the experience of freedom while I'm creating it. And then the milestone is, but of course, right? It's like, yes, obviously this was going to happen as a
I'm
natural.
watching this really interesting thing happen right now, and I'm curious if you're seeing it through a similar lens, where all of these people who finally got to a place where they've found a little more harmony in their life, where they're working out and taking care of themselves a little better, they're starting to eat better, they're getting going, and they're optimizing everything, and all of a sudden AI comes around. And AI comes around and they're like, oh my God, this is going to make me more efficient. But then when I'm talking to them, they're like, yeah, man, I stayed up to 1, 2, 3 working on this. And I got in like 465 hours of productivity in this week with all my AI. That's what the stats are saying. And they're eating like crap. They're not working out anymore. They're not sleeping anymore. They're not hanging out socially anymore. It's like they've nuked their entire optimization plan because they've tricked themselves into the same old rat race, but this time around, if I don't master AI, I'm going to be left in the dark.
Mm. There is an allure in Western society that more is always better. And that is the programming in our operating system that we have to identify, because any tool, literally any tool that we come across, we will see it through that lens, right? Like we
Mhm.
use the example of plant medicine. I've come across many people who have, like, they approach plant medicine from the lens of optimization,
Right.
right? Of, oh, this is going to make me a more productive leader. And so they approach everything from that lens. And so even if it's kind of like you can hire more people, you can get access to more efficient tools, et cetera. And if you are not conscious, if you're not aware of what your relationship is with reality, ultimately, all of those tools just end up amplifying the very same issue that you thought it was going to solve, right?
Right.
So now you're creating 400 hours of video content and you're so like pumped because you feel more productive, but it was actually supposed to be taking things off of your plate, but somehow you're just as busy as you were before.
Spot on. Spot on. You're just doing more things. So yes, you're getting more reach, things out there, or whatever, but you're now still chasing the wrong thing. You're back to chasing your tail again.
Yeah, and I don't want to downplay that creating, building, hunting. Like some of these are qualities that are innate to a person's purpose and the legacy.
Absolutely.
Like this has been many of my conversations with you is like, you don't have to abandon all of who you were. Like there were some great qualities and ways of being that you learned, but it's more about our attachment to those versions of ourselves and really how like what our relationship is with it. It's kind of like, can I eat a chip and put the bag down?
Right.
Or do I have to eat the whole bag? And I'm using it to soothe something inside of me. And when it comes to success, unfortunately, uh, these can be coping mechanisms that are praised by society. So it makes it even harder to detach from them, right? Like you put out, I saw a video of Gary Vee the other day, and he was talking about like, I put out 468 pieces of content a day. You need to be putting out massive amounts of content a day. Now, mind you, this is Gary Vee. He has an entire team
Huge team.
whose
Huge team.
whole job, their skill set is to put out content, right?
Right.
But we're just being sold, you just need to be doing more all the time.
That's right.
And I posit that you can utilize certain qualities about yourself and what you can create can be the same, if not better, in results and outcomes. It can be more satisfying, more purposeful, and that it has the thing that I think that we're all just really missing in the society, which is depth, which is its presence, right? The ability for this moment and every moment to be enough.
That's right. That's right. And I know that one of the practical questions that you encourage founders to ask is, who created this rule? The founder who had something to prove, or the person I am now? So how can someone identify the invisible rules that they're still obeying?
Yeah. It's funny because I posit it as you, but also it usually isn't even coming from you, right? Often these rules that we have for ourselves came from our parents and our family environment. They come from the education system. They come from the our religious upbringing and our communities, society as a whole. And so I think that it's important whenever we just tune in and recognize that something isn't working.
Mm,
Something about what I'm doing, there's a certain level of friction in what I'm doing. And is this the kind of friction that I need to overcome? Or is it the kind of friction that's telling me that something about what I'm doing isn't aligned?
mm,
And if so, who told me? Where did this come from? Right? Is it the version of me like I'll use my previous example of me getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like everyone says you're supposed to do. Um, was was that the version of me who felt like I had to prove that I was worthy of the success that I wanted, and so I had to get up at 5 a.m. to show that I was dedicated and I could out discipline everyone, right?
right.
Or was it actually who I've become, like who I actually am, who has a very different but extremely powerful rhythm to her energy and her day when I actually just surrender to it and, as much as possible, build my life around it. Like, obviously, there's still some times where I got to do what I got to do, and we all have to make things work, right? But
Absolutely.
it's not about perfection, but it is about like, hey, what if every week I just got like 1% better
Yep.
and more aligned? Not 1% better as like a person, but just 1% more true to who I am versus who the world tells me I was supposed to be or I had to be.
I love that, and it was cool to watch that be what led to even your own personal breakthrough with your own health and fitness, as you're sitting here going like, "I'm getting what I want because I'm being authentically myself."
Yeah, the my most recent one has been just in giving myself permission to pay attention to what my actual energy is. And
Mm.
I actually moved my workouts to the evenings because I always get this second wind, right? Like as the sun goes down, I get a second wind. And when I actually just gave myself permission to do that, all of a sudden, like I'm hitting PRs. I
Awesome.
actually have energy to to do what I need to do, and it doesn't feel like this massive monument that I'm, like, trying to overcome, all because I let go of the idea that I had in my head of, like, I don't know, I had a video that was, like, playing in my head of, like, "Oh, I get up in the morning at 7 o'clock, and then I have my coffee and my breakfast, and then I put on my
Your
workout outfit."
spritzer.
Well, I tell you, what was happening was I was ending up spending like 4 hours trying to get a workout in when,
Oof.
as soon as I just aligned it with what my energy was trying to do and who I really am, boom, I can
Right.
get in and out.
So, I wanna bring us over and shift to kind of the idea of the company as a mirror.
Yeah.
So, I know from my experience where I'm at, but I'm curious what you've seen with all the people you've guided is, do you think that the business, it's often the reflecting the founder's unresolved consciousness back to them?
For sure.
And,
Absolutely.
and can you give a couple of like patterns that show up in relationships, bodies, emotional lives that also appear in the company?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone knows to some degree. Maybe not everyone knows, actually, now that I say it, but I think many people um, feel like building a company is a self-development project, but they usually only think about it in terms of who do I have to become in order to get this next level of success.
Mm, mhm.
They very rarely look at it kind of the opposite way, which is like, what are the experiences and problems and issues and patterns that are happening in the company reflecting about who I am?
Mm,
And those triggers often are showing us um, our unresolved wounds, but also like where we have more power and more potential to tap into, right? Especially in relationships. One of the hot spots that I see, especially for founders, is thinking that everyone else um, is the problem when really the founder's like the bottleneck. They
mm.
want to delegate more and more. And even though they hire more people, they still end up working the same amount of hours or more because they're constantly um, managing what every single person is doing and how our project's going, putting out dumpster fires, those sorts of things. And often it ties back to a lack of trust, a fear of being
Yep.
betrayed by the people that you've hired,
Mm,
um, an inability to let go of being good, being the best at what you do, because at some level, in order for the company to grow, your identity also needs to evolve. And maybe you started your business like being the best at marketing or being the best in fitness, right?
Right.
then at some point, you're not the one who's doing the thing anymore. And now it's time for you to let go of that identity so that you can start to embody more of your traits that, let's say, have to do with being one of the best at curating an empowering environment, right?
Right.
Or allowing people to take ownership in something that you've built. And it's particularly hard because founders, I mean, it's a proven psychological phenomenon that uh, a lot of founders experience an identity fusion with their company. And it really does kind of light up some of the same centers in the brain as your own child. So letting
Mhm.
go of it and trusting others to some degree becomes really difficult and you become the bottleneck. I could
Yeah.
literally talk about this all day because there's a gazillion patterns that show up in the business. Um, but I think the best thing to do is like just look at where you are being triggered in relation to your business. And those are areas that something about the business is reflecting who you've been, and there's an
Mm.
opportunity for evolution.
I love that. And I know there's also the masculine feminine consciousness side of it. And I want to talk a little bit about my masculine shutdown. And after my near death experience, the masculine qualities that I'd relied on for most of my life, they seemed to disappear. I lost my structure, my consistency, direction, physical discipline, and all momentum came to a screeching halt uh, on the 3D stuff. Yet spiritually, it was a rocket ship. And from your perspective, what was happening to me during those years?
Yeah. I see this mostly with high achievers because in order to succeed in our society, we have to understand that this is a patriarchy. And in a patriarchy, masculine qualities are pedestalized to the point that boys, basically, to be a man, you're taught just don't be like a girl, right?
Right.
Anything
Right.
that's associated with the feminine, don't do that. And then you become over reliant on and overemphasizing this half of you, right? But all of us are a harmony of both energies. We are here to encompass and integrate to varying degrees. We all have all of the energy in us.
Mm.
But when we overemphasize for a very long period of time on strategy, discipline, logic, etc., it disconnects us from half of ourselves. And I'm going to even go a step further and say that it is the most subtly powerful path
Mm.
because
Mhm.
the we'll say the masculine half of us that operates really well and really easily in the 3D. If we think about the fact that we see very little of the 3D, there's actually more of the non-physical realm that we don't experience in the day to day. That other side of us has access to that information, right?
Mm.
Our intuition, our emotional capacity, our empathy, our collaborative abilities, etc.
Yes.
So what I see happen is when you are on this plane, um, and this is like just a very ancient teaching, but any extreme eventually leads to death and destruction. Any extreme. Because this plane, we're here to operate in harmony. So when we over index on solely masculine qualities and neglect the opposite, oftentimes we tip too far, and then it's kind of like a pendulum swing, right?
Mm, mhm.
So then we have to pendulum swing, and you experienced what I call it the swampy feminine, where you're literally just like complete goo,
Yep.
and it's like you can't put yourself together, you can't like build anything, and it feels like your guts are just melting all the time, kind of like the a butterfly in a cocoon, right? Where you just kind of dissolve.
Yes.
And that's what you experienced for 3 years. And
Yeah.
I will say, I know people who have never been able to recover from that, who have gotten kind of stuck in that mode, or they swing back to the opposite, right? They just like kind of ping pong. But
Yeah, I will not be ping ponging. We will never fist bump, just so you know. You're gonna be getting hugs from me, but you're also gonna be getting structure. Uh, Within the feminine, I want to break it down, and again, just for conversational context, between what can be considered like divine masculine, divine feminine energy, and wounded feminine energy. So at the same time as all this was happening, my feminine energy is fully activated. Intuition, spiritual awareness are just all over the place. But I also became way less grounded, and I had real difficulty turning insight into action. And I was easily manipulated. You saw some of the stuff I went through in the NLP world, which was just god awful. And I every day was begging for clarity. So how do you distinguish between this divine and wounded energies, if you will?
I personally, I mean, you and I are sitting here having a conversation and we'll use the terminology masculine and feminine. I actually try to move away from using the terms masculine and feminine only because um, they're kind of loaded in our
Mhm.
society to automatically be associated with genders. And
Yeah.
also the understanding of especially feminine energy, but also of masculine energy. We tend to think of, like very stereotypical. Like for the feminine, usually the only association is either what I call like the maiden energy, the mother energy, or the sexy siren energy. And those are
Yeah.
like the only three versions of femininity that are allowed. But
Mhm.
there are other manifestations. There's a warrior manifestation of
Yep.
femininity that's different than kind of on the opposite end. There's a wise woman energy. There's a more mystical side. So I do think that just in general, understanding the differences in energies, but also to understand that um, every energy has a light and a shadow side, right? And that's not light being good, shadow being bad. In fact, often the most power and the most
Mhm.
potential is in the shadow side, is in integrating the shadow, the shadow aspect of that energy, and knowing how and when to wield it is what makes you grounded, right? So for example, I think, some would say that maybe manipulation is a wounded feminine quality. However, there's actually appropriate times to utilize what people would call manipulation. And so this is also another little side note of, I think, people not even understanding what a shaman is as well, because they think that there's like this holy aspect when our concern is more about harmony. And sometimes that looks like saying the mean thing, or s- be, playing the role of the trickster and saying the confusing things that causes a very specific kind of action in someone. right?
I love that do no harm, take no shit side of harmony. And then I also love the trickster side of harmony because I think that the highest level is remembering if everything is a cosmic joke, then like who invented humor? Right? And part of that embracing of the shadow, I think, is and getting people out of their heads and into their hearts sometimes is like giving them that lens of like, stop taking this crap so seriously and stop thinking that you need to win this game by all means necessary, that you're acting completely out of integrity.
Yeah. If you think about the trickster energy is, I think, one that I really love and resonate with a lot. And I think part of that, if we think about like the history of like the jester, right? The jester or even comedian, right? Like they embody
Mhm.
this energy so well where they are like the only ones who can speak truth to power, right?
Right.
Because
Nice.
they know how to harness the uncomfortable, the taboo topics and say it in a way that is true, but you can also laugh about it and then being able to laugh about it starts to dissipate some of the density, like some of the heaviness and the weight on that action that you're taking or that way of being. And that's medicine. Like that is medicine work, by the
I
way.
fully agree. And I think of like, who were they there to entertain when they were the court jester? The court. Who is under the highest level of pressure and stress? The king and queen, who are sitting there trying to run the kingdom, if you will. They're under this high level of pressure and stress, and this reframing and finding the comedy in the intensity, I think, was a huge energy transmuter for them.
Yeah,
So I want to bring you into a little rapid fire.
let's do it.
And I'm just gonna spit these out and we'll just see whatever comes out, with the disclaimer of you don't need to be anybody but you, and that's why we love you. So what is more dangerous for a founder, failure or success?
Success.
Mm.
Success is more dangerous because there's no map.
Mm.
There's no map after.
I love that. What is one trait celebrated in entrepreneurship that's often a trauma response?
Ooh. Uh, Over strategizing, over planning.
Good one. What is one sign someone has confused control with leadership?
Oh. Mm, their immediate reaction to others is to ask what they're doing
Ah,
and need to know what everyone is doing all the time ends up being more about control
yeah.
rather than understanding like who who is there, who are your people, um what do they care about, what is driving them in any given moment.
And have you empowered them? What is one sign a founder has become more conscious?
The ability to observe themselves, so in a moment watching themselves play out a pattern, say a thing that they've always done, but they're able to do it not from being in the experience, but kind of watching themselves, observing themselves doing it and not having judgment, but curiosity about, I wonder why I do that.
Mm. What is one business rule you personally had to unlearn?
Oh my gosh, where to even start on that one? Um, that if I got it right, that if I got the marketing right, the messaging right, the positioning right, if I just got the pieces right, that then it would just work.
Ah, what is something founders frequently call a strategy problem that is actually an identity problem?
Basically everything. Okay,
Well said.
maybe not everything, but a lot.
What does the body know before the mind admits it?
Mm, what's true or not? What is aligned or not? You
Hmm.
usually know that. Your body knows and is telling you.
What is your most sacred daily practice?
Mm, probably my time with my ancestors, like at my ancestral altar.
Mm. What is one belief about success you no longer hold?
That it's a destination.
Mm. Last one on this. Complete this sentence. The next level of leadership requires.
Mm. The next level of leadership requires wholeness.
I love that. I love that. Now, before we close the show, uh, I'm going to turn the mic around and let you ask me any question that you'd like to ask. And I'm going to give the listeners a little context. We still talk a lot. So I'm curious. And I'm going to add in one more piece is you are the trickster because I'm going to give them a quick little story tangent here because it's good. I remember when I was really, really deep in the thick of it, when I was that goo, as you called it. And I had these meetings. I'd done this barter, get somebody ready for their wedding and extend in exchange for getting everything updated with my branding. And so I would do my side, and then I would get my homework of what I need to do. And I would show up and be like, I got nothing for you. I've done nothing, absolutely nothing. And then we repeat that week after week after week. And she's like, this. And I remember telling you about this, and you were laughing and laughing and laughing. And you're like, you're not supposed to be getting anything done now, sitting here in the goo. So, and I look back on all of it. I'm like, I was such a disappointment. I never got all those things over. I'm like, but that was not in alignment. And divine timing doesn't work on a stopwatch. You don't set world records for divine timing in the 4x400. So I've learned that one through you the hard way. So I'm going to open it up and let you ask me anything you want. And I can't see I'm going to answer it in rapid fire. May need to sit with it for a sec.
Well, I just want to say something about that though. What I think was really interesting about that moment is how hard you were tying the idea of like if I just get the brand right, if I just get the messaging and the marketing right, then all of this is going to come together and like that's going to fix it. Right? Like that was like the
Woo.
perfect example of those
It,
those
it,
things are amplifiers, right? Once you have the clarity that only comes through experience, through actually like putting a foot in front, not trying, you were kind of working backwards on that one.
I needed to become the brand before I marketed the brand.
Yes.
And I wasn't there yet. It's very similar to if we look all the way back at the start of our work together many a moons ago. I could not write a book about total self-trust then.
No.
And it's part of why it took me many years to start it. And then when I finally felt good to start it, I needed to take a year pause on it because I had to look at where are there blinders that I'm not embodying it. And it took me all the way to the point of a 3-year writing journey to get to the point of releasing it, where I felt in right relationship and authenticity and integrity to write a how-to manual on something like that.
Mm.
But I can tell you on that day, I sure as heck couldn't have done the branding or the writing or anything like that to solve that problem. And you're spot on right. The problem isn't a matter of the external, it's a matter of the internal creating the external reflection.
Yes. Yes. So good. Okay. So, my question for you, um, what do you recognize as the key shift that allowed for you to come out of that? I called it the swampy feminine, but also it was a void state, right? A state of being in this liminal in between. I'm not quite who I was, but I'm not yet who I'm becoming. What shift do you think allowed for you to kind of start creating and building again?
Oh, great question. And I know the exact moment.
Mm.
So, what happened was, as I'm in this gooey swamp and I get this inner calling, you must go to Egypt. And, oh, by the way, you're going to die in Egypt. And that scared the crap out of me. And as you remember, because fortunately you were on that trip with us, I got all of these signs of you're going to die in Egypt. And the left brain, practical, pragmatic father version of me was scared shitless because I'm sitting here going, I got a family. I've got some decent life insurance. I'm the sole provider, and I really like it here on planet Earth at this time, and I'm loving the time I'm spending with my family. I'm not ready to transcend this 3D human experience in any capacity. And we had some wild messages, and some people didn't come on the trip because they were getting similar messages of dying there. And so I said, you know what? There's no coincidence I'm going to this epicenter of masculine energy of Egypt versus going to, Peru where there's so much feminine energy. And so if I'm going to die, I'm going to kill off this version of me standing in my own way. That's at least how it came through to me in my experience. And so laying down in the sarcophagus, I crossed my arms and I said, let's just, if I've made all this commitment, I'm here, I've risked all these fears that would have my mom rolling around going crazy and you say you aren't leaving, let's shake off a lot of this. And I felt like I had astral projected in that sarcophagus. And something in me, as I came back, I went home, went from there to Israel to see my brother. I went home and I got sick again. It wasn't the same kind of sickness as I had had when I had my near death experience. And it wasn't your COVID cold. I tested negative for COVID. But as I came back from about 2 weeks of being sick, it felt like two rubber bands snapped into place.
Hmm.
And if in the words of the great Austin Powers, I felt like I got my mojo back. I was like, whoa, what is this? I got some mojo in me right now. But I didn't lose that feminine, like that childlike version of me and that flow and that wonder and that awe. But I also shook off that old version that was stuck in that mental loop of guilt and shame and blame and suffering.
Mm.
And so I'm still on that journey of harmony. I feel like the journey ends never, but the journey as Kyle ends when Kyle's not there, and I'm guaranteed to ascend because we all are. So I'm not going to focus all my time here on that. I'm going to focus on being here now. And I think there was something that shook inside of me at that moment that just made me realize that this is the right time for me. And this is all in its own divine timing. And how cool that you got to be there for all of those parts.
So cool. And also, like, I will never forget you and I being on Mount Sinai, you with vertigo, suffering so much, me with COVID on the top, going to the top of this mountain, right? We were both like going through this crazy initiation experience. Like, I can't even imagine how wild it must have been for you because there was no guardrails. up there, and there was lots of opportunities to plunge to your death on Mount Sinai in the middle of the night, and we made it off the mountain. Go us.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I do feel like I need to go back though and do Mount Sinai without COVID because I just feel
Yes.
like I deserve that experience at some
Yes.
point. But you know what? I want to reflect to you what I saw happen
Mm.
for you in those 3 years of really just swamping it out. What I kept recognizing in you was this ideal masculine that you were holding on to, that you kept comparing yourself to, right? Like this version of who you were, this like peak performer, this, statuesque, and how he showed up, like I have to go back to that. And it was the minute that you surrendered that actually the version of masculine that you can be may look different than that, may show up
Mm.
different, and you got
Yeah.
more curious and open to like, well, how might that look? And how might that show up? And a different masculinity came through you. And that's the one who has really been connecting and building and collaborating. Um, Obviously connecting with some of the more feminine aspects as well, and bringing that harmony, bringing that integration.
I love that. I appreciate that reflection. I don't have eyes behind my head, so it's always nice to have have that coming back to me. And I joke with my daughter. I've got my 50th. I'll be 49 in November, and then 50 the following November, which is wild to think about. So I was like, you know what? I'm like, I want to start now on a 50th birthday goal that's a little out of my comfort zone. That isn't reverting back to this old version of me, but I was thinking, mobility wise and different things. And so the joke I have with my daughter as she's going to go be a high school cheerleader now is I said, I want to be able to get my splits either, better than you as a cheerleader. When right now, God, I can't do, I can do the splits at the level of Dr. Evil right now. It's not much physical mobility with all these injuries and accidents and sports injuries and stuff, but I'm keeping it so light now versus so intense and so serious and so much tying it to my self-worth that I used to, where the identity was self-worth is like, I'm not credible if I'm not 5% body fat, which is nonsensical to me now at this stage of my life.
Yes.
I want to leave you with one last question, which is, what does harmony mean to you?
Harmony, I mean, we've said it a few times, but harmony to me is the it's two pieces. Number one, the integration and the ability to access all aspects of yourself, because I truly believe that we do have all of the energy in us. And number two, having the wisdom to recognize what energy is the medicine that we need for any given moment or experience that we have.
I love that. I love that. And it was beautiful how much we weaved that in today, unintentionally, because we both are so focused on the embodiment of it. And it's a gift. So just want to say thank you for coming on today. This was super fun, fascinating. Hopefully those who are listening can relate, get some interesting insights, maybe learn from a few of our experiences, and at bare minimum not climb Mount Sinai at 1 a.m. with COVID.
Or vertigo.
Or vertigo. So for those who are listening at home, I know we're going to have all the links and link to the show, but what's the best way to follow your journey and learn from you?
Yeah, these days, I'm over on Substack, writing and creating. So my publication there is Sovereign Legacy. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram at the Royal Shaman.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being such a good friend and mentor along this journey, and really appreciate the opportunity to have you on today.
Thanks so much for having me. I knew this would be a blast, but it exceeded even my expectations.
Love it. Love it. Well, say hi to the fam for me and more to come. All right, my friend, if this episode sparked something in you, don't just wander off into the abyss of the internet. Hit subscribe so you can actually get the good stuff when it drops. And if you're feeling generous or mildly enlightened, leave some love in a review. It takes just 30 seconds, and somehow it feeds the algorithm gods so they know to send more people who really need it. Now, if you want to step deeper into my world, rapidharmony.com is where the real magic lives. Coaching, community, rituals, and a few surprises that are way better than just scrolling around another motivational reel and not doing anything about it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. And remember, your inner harmony isn't hiding. It's just waiting for you to pay attention. I'll see you on the next episode. Now go subscribe before you forget.